What do we have today?
In this world that exists like that, don't be a Stephen A. Smith. Be an Admiral Halsey.
Take it back.
Take it back.
So you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line for participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders.
Okay.
Let's see some of what you said, my friend.
Sure. You know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? You could go to the House. You can draw up paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before. You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you? Got his behind back in the White House. Had you left him alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander-in-chief. You don't do that.
Caffeine's a bitch, you know?
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
Okay.
Here's the reality of the situation. First of all, I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say because I will tell you right now, he was never qualified for the job.
And you are.
When you talk about DEI and eradicating that, excuse me, what was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary? Please, give me a break. I don't care what he has to say. Let me get that out the way. As it pertains to Mark Kelly, what I was talking about is military. What I did was get on the phone with family and friends who have served in the military. And I said, we're not civilians. This is not the court of law. You can be implicated for implying something if you are a former military member or you are a present military member. It wasn't what Mark Kelly said. It's the fact that he was a combat Navy pilot who served in the military who would tell folks, ignore an order when it could get
ignore
them
an illegal
order.
I
said illegal.
I
said illegal. I'm talking about illegal. I understand that.
He said you don't have to follow an unlawful order, and that is in the military code of conduct.
And I'm saying to you, hold on, which I'm aware of.
But it didn't sound like you were aware of that.
He's aware of that. He's aware of that. Yeah.
I disagree with you.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
I had two governors, by the way, text me to tell me I was wrong, and they agree with you.
You are wrong.
I had two senators that reached out to me and said, you weren't wrong at all.
Well, Mikey Sherrill did say that the reason they felt the need to put that out is they were constantly being approached by people in the military saying, we're being put in really uncomfortable situations.
But
that to me is a little more relatable when you're a veteran yourself.
But I'm saying let me say this real quick.
You gotta do it real quick. Or wait till we come back.
All I'm saying is this. If you're a member of the military, I'm looking at the soldiers as saying, don't get yourself in trouble. Let somebody else do it. Don't you do it because it ain't gonna work for you.
Shall we begin?
When D.L. Hughley called out Stephen A. Smith, he didn't just clap back. He exposed the ugly truth about what happens when loud confidence replaces logic. Stephen A. went on The View to talk politics, but instead, he walked right into the biggest self-inflicted PR disaster of his career. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we're about to break down one of the most brutal takedowns in recent media history, and it exposes everything wrong with Stephen A. Smith's desperate quest for political relevance, because D.L. Hughley just absolutely baptized Stephen A. Smith. And I'm not talking about a mild critique. I'm not talking about a polite disagreement. I'm talking about a complete and total destruction of Stephen A.'s political credibility in front of millions of people. Stephen A. went on The View to discuss his controversial comments about Senator Mark Kelly, comments where he essentially accused a decorated Navy pilot and combat veteran of telling troops to defy the president. Despite being given multiple opportunities to walk it back, to admit he misunderstood, to show some intellectual humility, Stephen A. doubled down. He got defensive, he got loud, and he proved exactly what D.L. Hughley said about him. He's loud and wrong, and he thinks that's leadership. So stick around because we're breaking down exactly what D.L. Hughley said, Why Stephen A's response on The View was even worse than his original comments, and what this reveals about a man so desperate for political power that he's willing to sacrifice his credibility to get it. Let's get into it. The View appearance. Stephen A doubles down. Let's start with what actually happened on The View. Because this wasn't just Stephen A defending his position. This was Stephen A exposing his biggest insecurity in real time. Sunny Hostin, one of the co-hosts, gave Stephen A a perfect opportunity to gracefully pivot. She reminded him that Pete Hegseth, the current Secretary of Defense, said almost the exact same thing as Senator Mark Kelly back in 2016. Hegseth literally said, "The military won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief."
There are some guys at Leavenworth who made really bad choices on the battlefield. And I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
That's virtually identical to what Mark Kelly said. Word for word. Same principle, same meaning. So Sunny asks Stephen A a simple question. Given that the Secretary of Defense himself said this, would you like to change your position? And Stephen A's response, "I'm not changing a thing. I didn't stutter once." He didn't just refuse to reconsider. He got defensive. He got loud. He started talking about how he called military family and friends. He started justifying why Mark Kelly, a former Navy combat pilot, shouldn't have said what every military code of conduct already states. And then came the most telling moment. Stephen A said, "I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say because he was never qualified for the job." What was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend, and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary? Let that sink in for a second. Stephen A. Smith, a sports commentator who hosts ESPN shows and podcasts, just questioned Pete Hegseth's qualifications because he was a TV host. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Loud and wrong is not leadership. Now let's talk about what D.L. Hughley said, because he didn't just criticize Stephen A.'s position. He dissected his entire approach to political commentary and exposed the fundamental flaw in Stephen A.'s thinking. D.L. Hughley said,
Interesting because he believes, obviously, that being loud and wrong is leadership. But being loud and wrong is the sole province of old white dudes. They're the only ones who are going to get to be loud and wrong.
And then he delivered the knockout punch.
What the ironic thing is Stephen A. Smith is a broadcaster who thinks he can be president.
Stephen A. Smith is a broadcaster who thinks he could be president, but he questioned Pete Hegseth's resume, a podcaster who became Secretary of Defense, when Stephen A. himself is a sports commentator trying to become a political pundit. That's not just criticism, that's surgical precision. D.L. Hughley identified exactly what's happening here. Stephen A. is so desperate to be taken seriously in the political arena that he's willing to ignore facts, double down on bad takes, and attack people's qualifications, all while lacking the qualifications himself. But the most devastating part of D.L. Hughley's response was this. He contrasted Stephen A. Smith with Admiral Alvin Holsey, a four-star admiral with 37 years of military service who resigned rather than follow an order he believed was unlawful. D.L. said,
This is a tale of two black men. One who believes that being loud and wrong is leadership, Stephen A. Smith, and one is Admiral Alvin Halsey. Don't be a Stephen A. Smith. Be an Admiral Halsey.
That's not just a takedown. That's a character assassination, and it's backed up by facts, by principle, and by a clear understanding of what actual leadership looks like. Why Stephen A. got so defensive? Here's what I think is really happening, and this is the part that explains Stephen A.'s entire response on The View. Politics is not Stephen A. Smith's wheelhouse. And when you feel insecure about something, when you know deep down that you're out of your depth, you get defensive. Think about it. If someone questioned Stephen A.'s sports take, if they said he was wrong about LeBron or wrong about the Cowboys, he wouldn't react the way he did on The View. He'd probably laugh it off, make a joke, or calmly explain his position. But when Sunny Hostin challenged him on his Mark Kelly comments, Stephen A. immediately got combative. He raised his voice. He interrupted. He started justifying and over-explaining. That's not confidence, that's insecurity. Stephen A. knows that the vast majority of people, especially people with actual military experience, think he's completely wrong on this issue. Go search Stephen A. Smith politics and see what people are saying. Most of the responses are, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And here's the kicker. I think the platforms that invite him on, PBD Podcast, Sean Hannity, Chris Cuomo's News Nation show, are inviting him specifically because they know he's going to make a spectacle of himself. They're not taking him seriously. They're letting him talk because it's entertaining. Because watching Stephen A. stumble through political commentary is good for ratings. But Stephen A. thinks he's being taken seriously. He thinks he's earning a seat at the table. And that delusion is exactly what D.L. Hughley exposed. The desperate quest for political validation. Let's be honest about what's really happening here. Stephen A. Smith is desperate for political relevance. And that desperation is causing him to sacrifice his credibility. Why else would he defend such an obviously incorrect position? Why else would he double down when given multiple opportunities to walk it back? Because admitting he was wrong would mean admitting he doesn't understand politics the way he understands sports. And for someone with Stephen A.'s ego, that's unacceptable. But here's the uncomfortable question. What is Stephen A. hoping to gain from all this? Usually, when public figures go this hard defending a politician or an administration, they're looking for something in return. Maybe a favor, maybe access, maybe a position, maybe influence. But Stephen A., what's he getting out of this? He's not running for office, he's not lobbying for legislation, he's not trying to get a cabinet position, at least not realistically. So why is he twerking for this administration? Why is he so desperate to defend positions that even the Secretary of Defense contradicts? The only explanation that makes sense is that Stephen A. is trying to build political capital. He's trying to position himself as a black conservative voice that the administration can point to and say, see, we have support. But in doing so, he's sacrificing the one thing that made him valuable in the first place, his credibility. The Mark Kelly situation. What actually happened? Let's go back to what actually started all of this, because understanding the facts makes Stephen A.'s position even more indefensible. Senator Mark Kelly, a former Navy combat pilot, astronaut, and decorated veteran, made a statement reminding military members that they are not required to follow unlawful orders. That's it. That's what he said. This isn't controversial. This isn't radical. This is literally written into the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Every service member is taught this during basic training. Stephen A. somehow interpreted that statement as Kelly telling troops to defy the president. He went on his show and accused Kelly of undermining military discipline and encouraging insubordination. But that's not what Kelly said, at all. Kelly didn't say disobey your commander-in-chief. He said you are not required to follow unlawful orders. There's a massive difference. One is sedition, the other is basic military law. And when people, including active duty and retired military members, pointed this out to Stephen A., his response was to double down, to get louder, to get more defensive. That's not journalism. That's ego protecting itself. The tale of two black men, Hughley's most powerful point. Hughley's most devastating critique wasn't about Stephen A.'s political knowledge. It was about his character. When DL contrasted Stephen A. Smith with Admiral Alvin Halsey, he wasn't just making a political point, he was making a moral one. Admiral Halsey had 37 years of military service. He achieved the highest rank possible, 4-star admiral. He was responsible for the Caribbean Command. And when he was allegedly given an order he believed was unlawful, he didn't rage on TV. He didn't defend the indefensible. He didn't double down. He resigned. He walked away from his career rather than compromise his principles. That's leadership. That's integrity. That's what it looks like when you actually care about doing the right thing instead of just being loud. Stephen A. Smith? He's doing the opposite. He's choosing volume over substance. He's choosing loyalty to an administration over loyalty to facts. He's choosing political ambition over intellectual honesty. And that's why D.L. Hughley's comparison was so brutal, because it showed everyone exactly what Stephen A. is. A man who's willing to be wrong as long as he's loud. A man who thinks aggression equals authority. A man who confuses confidence with competence. The danger of loud and wrong in serious times. Here's why this matters beyond just one media personality making bad takes. We're living in serious times. This isn't sports debate. This isn't LeBron versus Jordan. We're talking about military law. We're talking about constitutional principles. We're talking about whether service members should follow unlawful orders. These are life and death issues. These are issues that determine whether our democracy functions or collapses. And when someone with Stephen A's platform, someone with millions of followers, spreads misinformation about what military law actually says, that's dangerous. It confuses people. It makes them think that following lawful orders means blindly obeying everything. It creates a culture where questioning authority, even when authority is wrong, is seen as betrayal. That's not patriotism, that's authoritarianism. And Stephen A., either through ignorance or ambition, is contributing to that culture. What this reveals about media culture. But Stephen A. isn't the only problem. He's a symptom of a larger disease in media culture. We're living in an era where saying the most egregious, most flippant thing gains you traction, where being wrong loudly gets more attention than being right quietly. You see it on both sides. Grifters on the left playing to progressive fears, grifters on the right playing to conservative outrage. Everyone's chasing clicks, chasing engagement, chasing controversy. And networks know this. That's why they keep inviting Stephen A. on political shows. Not because he's insightful, not because he's informed, but because he's entertaining. He's going to say something provocative. He's going to get defensive. He's going to create viral moments. And that's exactly what happened on The View. Stephen A. didn't go on that show to have a nuanced discussion. He went on to defend his ego. And the producers knew that's what would happen. That's the media ecosystem we're living in. And it's destroying our ability to have actual conversations about serious issues. Stephen A.'s fundamental problem. He can't admit he's wrong. Let's be real about what Stephen A.'s actual problem is. It's not that he doesn't understand politics. It's not that he's conservative. It's not even that he has bad takes. It's that he can't admit when he's wrong. If Stephen A. had gone on The View and said, you know what, I've heard from a lot of military folks. I've thought about this more. I think I misunderstood what Senator Kelly was saying. My bad. This entire story would have ended. People respect humility. People respect someone who can admit they made a mistake. But Stephen A.'s ego won't let him do that. So instead, he doubles down. He gets louder. He attacks the qualifications of people who disagree with him, all while lacking those same qualifications himself. And that's why D.L. Hughley's takedown was so effective, because D.L. didn't just attack Stephen A.'s position, he exposed his character flaw, the inability to accept being wrong. The final word, credibility lost. Let me be clear about something. Stephen A. Smith is great at what he does. When he's talking sports, when he's debating basketball or football, he's entertaining and often insightful. But politics isn't sports. And the same tactics that work in sports debate, being loud, being confident, being unwilling to back down, those tactics are disastrous in political discourse. Because in sports, being wrong doesn't have real consequences. If Stephen A. has a bad take about the Cowboys, nobody dies. Nobody loses their rights. Nobody's democracy is threatened. But when you spread misinformation about military law, when you attack veterans for stating basic facts, when you defend indefensible positions just to curry favor with politicians, that has consequences. And those consequences include losing your credibility. D.L. Hughley didn't just criticize Stephen A., he destroyed his political credibility in front of millions of people. He exposed Stephen A. as someone who's loud and wrong and thinks that's leadership. And the worst part, Stephen A. still doesn't get it. He's still defending his position. He's still convinced he's right. That's not confidence, that's delusion. And until Stephen A. can admit he was wrong, until he can show some intellectual humility, until he can stop treating politics like sports debate, he's going to keep getting embarrassed like this. D.L. Hughley just showed everyone what Stephen A. really is. A man who's desperate for political validation and willing to sacrifice his credibility to get it. Don't be a Stephen A. Smith. Be an Admiral Hughley. If you think D.L. Hughley just delivered the most brutal takedown of 2025, hit that like button. If you think Stephen A. needs to stay in his lane and stick to sports, drop a comment below. And if you want more breakdowns exposing what's really happening in media and politics, make sure you subscribe because we're just getting started. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.